Hi, Jen.
Hi,
How are you doing?
who's talking to me?
Judy,
Oh,
Bruce.
hi, Judy.
Oh,
Hi,
Thanks for
Gail.
coming.
good evening.
Hi, Mercedes. Hi,
Hi,
Fred.
Jen.
Good to see you too. And Tammy Taylor's here. My goodness, I feel the love.
You should.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. I would like to welcome you to the beginning of our 23-24 webinar series for the Pennsylvania Association for Middle Level Education. My name is Gail Heinemeyer. I serve as the Director of Professional Development for the organization. And we are interested in providing some professional development to folks about topics that are near and dear to your heart, all of which somehow impact those adolescent students that we serve. Tonight, we are very pleased to have Jen Williams with us as our presenter. So as we begin, let me just give you a few little ground rules of things here. This webinar will be recorded and it will be available on the PAMLE site later on. We do ask that you mute your computer while Jen is doing her presentation. You can post questions in the chat, but we will have an opportunity if you do want to interact with her and put on your microphone, ask a question. Please feel free to do that. I think we're a small enough group that certainly will not be a problem for us this evening. And Jen has asked if you feel so inclined, show us what you look like. So be happy to turn on your video so that we can put names and faces together. So I mentioned that Jen Williams is going to be our presenter this evening. Jen is the president of the Southeastern Region Board of the Pennsylvania Middle School Association, or Pennsylvania Association for Middle Level Education. She is also the president-elect for the state board. She began her career, I believe, in the Twin Valley School District, I think, Jen.
I started out way back in Upper Dublin
Way
and
back
then
up in Upper
Twin
Dublin
Valley. Mhm.
and then to Twin Valley, and has been a school counselor, but made the decision a few years ago after she began to investigate restorative practices that she wanted to become more involved with that. And now she is a trainer for the International Institute for Restorative Practices. She also is an author, having written a book called Peacekeepers, Empowering Youth Using Restorative Practices. She's got a wealth of knowledge to share with us this evening. And so at this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn this over to Jen.
All right. Hi, everyone. Okay. So let me start this. Can everyone see the presentation? Okay. So yes, hi. I see some friends. I also see people that I don't know, and welcome, welcome. I'm really excited to share some knowledge. Tonight is going to be more of what do we do once we have a little bit of background of restorative practices. But if you're sitting through here and you're thinking, I don't even know what this is, I'm going to give you a brief overview no matter what. And then we're going to look and do a little deeper dive into how we can do reflection, and also have some tools to keep things positive and making sure that we build good relationships with the people we work with on a regular basis. So I would like to start out, as all restorative people do, with a little quick go around. And with that, I think we're just going to, I guess we can feel comfortable sharing if we would unmute. And I would like to know if you can give your name, where you work, or what you do with your time, those of you who are retired in this group, and describe yourself currently as the weather. Okay, so your name, I'll put it in the chat. Name, place of work, or what you do, and then describe yourself as the weather. I did not spell that right, but that you see it. All right, so does somebody want to go first? Tammy, why don't you go? Hi.
Hello, I'm Tammy Taylor. I work at Twin Valley Middle School. I've known Jen for a long time. She's fabulous. And myself as the weather. Today I feel partly sunny.
Who would you like to go next? Would you
Oh.
pick someone, Tammy?
Oh, how about Mercedes?
Okay.
Thank you, Tammy. Hi, I'm Mercedes Wadika. I also teach at Twin Valley Middle School. I've known Jen for 6 years, 7 years, and actually Tammy is my neighbor in the hallway, so we know each other too. I would say partly sunny to partly cloudy as the day went on today.
Who would you like to go next? You said Paul? Oh, Amy? Go ahead, Amy.
I can tag on there because that would be what I would say today too. Partly sunny and then partly a little bit of cloudy. And my name's Amy Necci and I teach 8th grade Spanish at Yellow Breeches Middle School.
Thank you. Amy, who would you like? Oh, you just muted. So would you pick someone next?
Sure. Let's go with Gail.
Okay, my name is Gail Heinemeyer. I work at Happily Being Retired. Did teach and served as a principal and a district administrator for 45 years in the Ridley School District. In terms of describing my day with respect to the weather, I'm going to say sunny. I had a fairly good day today, got some things accomplished. Probably could have gotten more done, but actually a good day and excited to be participating in this with Jen.
Can you pick someone next?
How I'm looking at the list to see how about I see Mr. Vosberg there. How about you, Bruce?
How are you doing? I'm Bruce Vosberg. I'm also retired. I was a principal for 20 years at the Charles Patton Middle School in Unionville, Chatsford. I'm currently the director of Schools to Watch for Pennsylvania. I'm also on the state and regional board with Jen. I've known Jen for a long time. And actually, we were just in a meeting just the other day. So my day was sunny. It was a great day today. I was outside. It was a beautiful day.
Who's next, Bruce?
Who's on the list that hasn't gone? Paul. Is Paul on this list?
Paul is on the list.
Paul is on the list, and Paul Meck is retired. And I'm still working with the PAMLE board on partnerships and vendors. My day and description would be clear and cool.
Who's next, Paul?
Let's see. Marinac.
Hey, there we go. Hi, sorry, I was a little.
Oh, there she is.
In my kitchen. Hi, Paul. Hi, Bruce. I know you guys. Jen Marinac, former 6th grade teacher, currently subbing, and want this hour for Act 48 credit, but still trying to decide what I want to be when I grow up. So if I want to go back to teaching or not. So, and I have 2 middle level children who are just over there eating their dinner. I have a 5th grader and an 8th grader. So I am teaching it and living it. My day was sunny, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't sub today, but I have a bunch of days scheduled for the fall.
Great. And Judy?
Hi, all. My name is Judy. I'm retired. I don't know if you can see me or not. Okay. I'm retired, but I am a lifelong middle level learner. So I'm here to learn from Jen because I've been doing that for a couple of years now and find it so refreshing. So I'm working still, although retired, to kind of champion middle level education. Looking forward to it. I'm a little cloudy because I just cut my finger really badly.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Are you
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, may need stitches.
And yet you're hanging on with us.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for sharing. I really want this to be interactive. I have a Jamboard later. I have some other things that we want to do together. So thank you for all participating and feeling comfortable doing that. I'm Jen Williams. I am a recovering middle school counselor. I've been an educator for over 20 years and been a restorative practices practitioner for about 15. And I would, in the summers, go and do some trainings and travel the country to help train educators on restorative practices through the International Institute for Restorative Practices. And then I realized, you know, I feel like kids can do this work. So I created a program where students were doing responsive restorative justice conferencing in Twin Valley. And then I would take them to conferences and people are like, well, how is this happening? So I wrote a book on how to implement all of that. And then a couple of years ago, after COVID and just feeling like I needed a shift, I decided to become a systemic coach to implement restorative practices. So I created my own business, and I also still have a strong partnership with IIRP. And I am now supporting, I think I counted the other day, it's like 13 or 15 schools across the country. And we do trainings and then come back and help implement monthly through helping the system support the work that we did. So it's a very exciting shift. I'm super excited to share a little bit also with you tonight on how do we get ourselves off to the right track to have good, strong, healthy relationships to sustain the good, bad, and the ugly that we have as educators, right? Oh, and I'm Sunny today. I started doing support with an organization in our area. I think some of us know from Chester County, Christian Stecker, Tom Stecker's son, does high ropes and low ropes. So I have been helping kids swing through trees as kind of a fun thing that I picked up along the way. So I'm Sunny because it's just so fun to work with kids directly because sometimes I miss doing that. So restorative skills to start your year off right. I think many of you that are in the classrooms are already there and have been for at least several weeks. And some of this will resonate with you. Even if we've started, you can still kind of change up some things or try and consider doing a couple things to get yourself moving. So a little bit about me. I did talk about the Peacekeeper. Gail gave a really great all-encompassing introduction of me. That is me last year at our state conference. Always a really fun time if you can have the opportunity to attend. We are still again this year in King of Prussia, and it's going to be a great time in February. So if you notice on every slide, I have a QR code. And you can click on there, and that's my website. You can dive in a little deeper on who I am and what I offer. And that is a picture of my book cover. The students helped create the book cover. That was the blackboard in our peace room space. And it's available on Amazon. So our learning objectives tonight. We're going to learn an overview of restorative practices. When we do trainings, it's a full 2 days. There's no way I can get that done in an hour, but I will give a brief overview of what it is. Then we're going to look at restorative practice tools to reflect on how we are as restorative practitioners. And I would guess that many of us will probably find ourselves in a good spot already. Many times we come to education in a collaborative way, and when I train with teachers, they're like, "Oh, I think I kind of do this already." It's like, yeah, you pretty much do. So, and then we're going to look at something called fair process and how do we make decisions with restorative practices in mind. And then finally, we'll look at how to create a proactive lesson plan using circles. Okay. So I have a Jamboard that I'm going to put in our chat. And thanks, Bruce, for putting the shout out for the state conference details. So please go into the Jamboard and we're going to take a look at what is restorative practices. Some of you I know I've trained. So some of you have been to my workshops before. And you may hear about what restorative practices is from the media or people have mentioned it. But really, what have you heard? What do you think it is? And we're just going to make a collage. It might not all be accurate, and that's okay. So is it still showing up? Can you see my Jamboard?
I can see it.
And are we able to create? So the way you use a Jamboard is you take a sticky note, or you can make a text box and you can write your answer in there. I see people in there, so that's a good first step. And you'll notice there's 2 pages. We're just focusing on the first page right now. It could be a word that you think about. It could be a tool that you think is in a restorative practice. Solving a problem, yeah. Anybody else? I'm gonna move this down a little bit. Oop. They're kind of coming up on the same spot. So if you notice that yours came on at the same spot as someone else's, try to move it. Awesome. Student leadership, reflection, and conversation used in an effort to maintain and restore relationships when needed. Yeah. A way to help people who have been hurt, and a way for those who have hurt them to gain some understanding and empathy. Mm-hmm. Working through conflicts, issues in a fair and positive environment. Absolutely. Give about 30 more seconds. It's necessary in our world and schools today. Yep. Okay, so feel free if you want, you can add as we go. But these are a great start. The word restorative feels like a synonym for healing to me. Yes. So we talk about restoring. Some people do restorative yoga. We want to try to get back, right? Get back to a place where we were from, where we want to be, where we feel safe and secure, right? Okay, so I'm going to go back to our presentation. So the fundamental hypothesis of restorative practices is that human beings are happier, more cooperative and productive, and more likely to make positive changes in their behavior when those in positions of authority, or I like to say in positions of influence. Because authority sometimes is negative and can have some emotions attached to it. They do things with them rather than to them or for them. So everything we do, and think about what is the important word in that hypothesis that we can really hold on to for restorative practices. What do we think is the important word? Amy says with. Yeah. We want to be with people, right? We want to get away from always saying I. And we want to see how we can work with others. Excellent. So there are a couple things that have evolved just recently with the IARP. And the framework that I'm showing you tonight is a framework that is extracted from the trainings that IARP has in their curriculum. So just recently, so they used to have a social discipline window, okay? And this is called, if you notice, the social engagement window. So again, like authority, discipline can be a little bit of I don't know if we really want to focus completely on discipline because there's so much to being with people, okay? So they came up with this. In order for us to be restorative, which is that top right corner, we need to have two things occurring. High accountability, which used to be high control. We're moving towards accountability, and high support. Now, a lot of times restorative practices gets a bad rap because we focus on the support that it gives. We don't necessarily look at accountability. Oh, people can't get suspended when you have a restorative school. Not the case. You can still have consequences. It's what you do in order for that child to come back into that system, feel like they're a part of it. That's the support piece that comes with the accountability. Okay. They need to feel connected in their community. So in order for this all to happen, we need to have relationships created, right? We need to have social capital built in order for us to have the students feel like they are part and will want to cooperate with us in order for them to feel like they can come back and get ready to learn again. Think about the kids that do really well in someone's classroom and then not well at all in another. Can we look at the relationship maybe with the teachers that are in those classrooms? Maybe, right? It could be a lot of different reasons, but the stronger the relationship, the more likely the child's going to cooperate. So if you notice the other quadrants, there is 2, there's 4, and there's not. So where do you think you are currently functioning in your role? And I'm going to ask that again after I give you a little bit more explanation. So when I was a counselor, I may have walked into a school day knowing that I had an email that I was going to ignore for a little bit because I knew it was an angry person that I needed to be in the right frame of mind to respond to, right? So I might function in the not box, but then immediately when I'm walking in, I'm having a child refusing to get out of their car to come into school. So I am going out and being in the 4 box and helping that child and the family help them be successful to get in and start learning. Okay. Or from that point, and this is all within like 15 minutes of the first beginning of my day, then I might come in and there might be a fire drill unexpectedly because middle schoolers sometimes do that. And we're constantly trying to get our stuff and emergency response. And I'm in the 2 box because this is unexpected. I'm running down, not running down, but I'm walking to my post, making sure everybody's safe and we're working as a team. And when that happens and we get back in the building, I am shutting my door for 2 minutes and I'm taking a breath and I'm getting back in the with box. And that could happen within no time at all. And it's okay if we're not always in the with box. We talk about walking to with. And our goal is ultimately we need to live in that with box. We need to try to get back in there. So think about where you are as a teacher and educator and where you currently function. I'm not going to make you share it unless you want to, but I want you to think about that. And it's okay if you're in another box right now, okay? The other question I want you to consider, where is your system? Meaning those that are making the decisions in your community of learning, right? Where you work or what some of us are on boards and educational groups. Where do they function? Is somebody doing all the work and they're in the 2 box and they're just barking orders? Are we afraid to be ourselves because of all the high accountability and not a lot of support? Or are people doing things for us and we don't have a voice, right? Or are people checked out? And I find the not box to be the scariest one as a school counselor, because that means that we're not being attentive to the needs of kids. And it would possibly be someone's going to slip through the cracks and there'd be a safety concern, right? So think about where you are right now. And then where you are, where your system is right now. What I'm going to ask you to share out is, what do you think you need to get to with? Okay, so in the chat, or we can unmute, whichever you prefer. What do you need to get to with? Any thoughts? Do you need more accountability? Are you feeling like, all right, I'm really getting to a point where I'm kind of coming in, it's springtime. We come in late, a couple minutes. we're needing a little kick, right? Or do you need support? Because this is really hard. Anybody able to share? And it's okay.
Jen, I will.
Okay.
I feel like I feel like in our building things are very punitive. I don't know that all the time. That's from where I am in my space. There seems in my own classroom, I try to be restorative. But if it's not like the way that the buildings run, it makes it difficult.
Mhm. The system is really influential in where we will be in our classrooms sometimes. Sometimes we can kind of hide and do our thing and kind of lay under the radar. Sometimes you can't, right? Thanks for sharing. Anyone else?
Again, I'll just say a little bit about my comment here. And I think a lot of times I feel like I'm bounced back and forth between 2 and 4. So it's like, okay, sometimes there's a desire for accountability. Sometimes there's more of a desire for support. And depending what role I'm in at that time. So I'm looking at this as being working from my office as compared when I was in a counselor role, but I don't think it changes a whole lot for me because I am primarily at with. That's where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what else is happening around me that has an influence in how strong or how maybe dynamic that with can actually be.
And it feels good. Anybody who knows Paul, you feel like you're in the with box because you bring people with you. And that's a great skill to have, you know. Thank you.
Welcome.
So I'm gonna move us along. But that's a really great reflection tool that we can use for if we're feeling a little off, we can say, oh, okay, so I think I'm in this box. And then you can identify what you need based on what box you're in. So if you're in the 4 box, you might need accountability, right? If you're in the 2 box, you might need some support. If you're in the not box, you're going to ask for a lot of things, and that's okay. I love using an activity like this with systems. I'll work with an administrator and I'll say, where are your paraprofessionals living? What box are they primarily in? And then we start looking at themes and patterns. And then we think, oh, maybe we need a professional development, or maybe we need some kind of support because they're in a box that we need them to be moving in a different direction. And it doesn't feel punitive then. It feels goal setting and very purposeful in that as a reflection tool. Does anyone have any questions about using that? Okay. All right. So then we have what's called fair process. So fair process, whenever I would feel frustrated, I realized that one of these was broken down in my role, whatever I do. So in order to have fair process, and this is based out of the Harvard Business Review, they did a study where they said people are really more likely to cooperate when these 3 things exist. So having engagement, having the voices of those who are going to be impacted by that decision, okay? Have their voices heard. Then 2, explanation. You're going to make a decision because you are the person of influence. as a classroom teacher, you're going to have to make decisions. So after you make that decision, you're going to explain it. This is why I made the decision. And then the third part is expectation clarity. After the decision is made, what's going to happen moving forward? What changes will people expect to see? What are some outcomes that you're hoping to see? And those three things exist. So I like to give parenting examples here. I have a middle schooler as well, an 8th grader, and I have a son who is now a junior. I can't even believe it, but so a 16-year-old. And when they were little, I would call the summers mommy boot camp, because we would just go all over the place and really have some fun times. So one time we went to the aquarium, and you know how they make you go through the gift shop every time you leave. And I knew, I was savvy. I said, okay, we're going to the aquarium, because I had a Groupon. And when we are done, they're going to walk us through the gift shop. So I asked them, what do you think you would want to get at the gift shop? Or what do you think we're going to get out of our day? Because I don't really want to buy them things. But they were able to have a voice. I want to go see the penguins. I want to see this. I want to see that. I want to go to the gift shop. Okay. So then I'll say, we are not going to buy anything at the gift shop, because I think the experience is going to be more valuable than you bringing something home and putting it in the corner and not seeing it again. So having that conversation before we even left the house, there was no whining. There was no questions. They knew exactly the decision I made and why. And then we would walk through what's expected of them. Recently, we went through and we went on a trip internationally. This is the first time our kids have ever gone through an airport in customs. We've gone through the border in Canada, but we've never done customs with a family. They didn't know what was going on. They were very nervous that they were going to be interrogated by the people at TSA and customs. So having those conversations of really breaking it down is very helpful. You can also see this as, what do we expect when we are walking through the hallway? What do we need to do when we're in the cafeteria? It doesn't matter that they're middle schoolers. In every school that I've been at across the country, they all need reminders of how to behave, especially coming out of the pandemic, when they were able to do whatever they felt they could do at home to learn, right? And it might not be what we expect them to do in our buildings. So before you leave for lunch dismissal, hey, let's just have a reminder. And then coming back in, if they come back to your class after that, or whenever they arrive, like, hey, great job, do some praise. You're all rock stars at that anyway, right? So having fair process in place really limits those conflicts, because there aren't any things that they can ask or get anxious about. There's no real unknowns, because you're sharing it with everybody. It doesn't take away your power to make decisions. Don't feel like you have to have everybody's voice in every decision you ever make. That would be exhausting, right? So we're actually going to go through a decision-making activity, okay? Any questions on fair process? If you do, just put it in the chat and Gail will tell me if it pops up.
Got it.
Okay. So we are going to, as you see, rock, paper, scissors in the corner. It's not fair process, but we are going to go through some steps on how to make decisions using fair process. The first questions are about engagement. Who will be impacted by that decision? So you want to identify, if you're going to go on a class trip and you're trying to figure out where to go. So with the Peacekeepers, we always had an event at the end of the year. I wanted them to give me ideas on where they would like to go. So I gathered all of their ideas. How will I engage the people who are impacted by the decision? Was I going to circle up and ask them? Was I going to have them write down their ideas and put it in a basket so that I had it? Would I do a Google form? Right? So you want to think about how are you going to reach the people that will be impacted by that decision. Okay. The second part is about explanation. How are you going to explain the decision that you made? So we decided to go to a local park and go stand up paddleboarding or canoeing or kayaking, whatever. It was boating activity. Well, how am I going to share that? Right? Am I going to have things, examples available? Am I going to have all the details of the pricing so that they can make a choice of what boat activity they're going to do? How am I going to explain it? And then what is the most important information to communicate at the time? Okay. I only needed them to know 3 months ahead of time that that's what we were going to do. We're going to go boating, then we're going to have a picnic lunch. Details to follow, right? Or it's probably shorter time and you have a permission slip ready to go. I have all the details there. I might give out more information. Again, that's your decision. You can figure out what you'd want to do, but think about the important things that you're going to communicate. And then steps for expectation clarity. What are your new rules or what are your expectations? When we go to a public event like boating in a local park, I expect that you have appropriate swimwear on, right? I expect that we have language that would be appropriate for us to be. If there were toddlers around us, there's communication that people are going to hear what we're talking about because we're in public. I mean, you can't do that in school anyway, but just reiterating what the rules are the expectations, right? And what is going to happen next. So here's the thing. If you have those expectations in place and somebody's going to not do the expectations or break that rule, what's going to happen? Well, we have the school van. If somebody is misbehaving, we will all have to get on the van and we're going to have to go back. I don't want to have to do that. How are we going to keep each other accountable to behave so that we can go and have a good time? What kind of supports do you need? We're not going to bring grapes because you might start throwing them, whatever. I hated the raisin day at cafeteria, right? Everybody throws them around and whatever. So sometimes we have to be a little more preemptive and make sure that we set people up for success. So that is how we make decisions with fair process. Does anyone have any questions on that? Okay. I'm going to keep us moving. I see it's 7:45. Okay. So the continuum. Restorative practices is a foundational language supportive social engagement, fair process stuff. It's the plate where our initiatives of PBIS, SEL, all the things get put on the plate, okay? We have certain tools that we can use to live out the restorative practices continuum. And they go from informal to formal, going from left to right. The only pure responsive tool on this continuum is this restorative justice conferencing. That's a whole nother 2-day training. And that's what the peacekeepers did. So we followed a script. It was a very formalized process. There were referrals, there was an actual meeting, and then there was a plan that we did, and we did follow-ups. And all of that information got stored for our Safe in Schools data that we put to the state. So looking at the other pieces, which is more of classroom teaching strategies, if you notice, 80% of the time, we want to be proactive. So if you have a classroom that's a little squirrely, that they're kind of like making it be more responsive than you typically want it to be, you want to cushion it to be 80% proactive on top of all of that. Okay. So if you have 2 incidences in a class period, you're going to try to do 8 different things that's going to be proactive with that child. Now, you're always going to have outliers. Those MTSS tier 3 kids, you might not be able to do some of these things proactively with them because they're having a really hard time engaging and making healthy relationships with people. And that's okay. I know a lot of times we're like, they want everybody to be restorative. Sometimes kids are really dysregulated and having a hard time because of trauma or whatnot, right? So we can use affective statements, checking in, building relationships. Hey, how you doing? Using emotional words, those I statements that we use. The more we use them, the more we're giving of ourselves, and we create empathy, like somebody had said on the Jamboard. The other piece is affective questions. Those are used, and you can even look them up online, restorative questions. They pop up in a Google search. But those of you who I've trained, you have cards that I had given, and it's what happened, what were you thinking at the time, who was impacted by what you have done, you know, and then if you ask somebody who's been harmed, what do you need to move past this incident, right? And let things go or heal from it, right? So those things can be done also proactively. Maybe you're reading some kind of a literature thing, and what's going to happen with the character, right? And go through those questions. Or you were on time for the first time in 3 weeks. What happened? How can I support you moving forward? You know, so there's different ways that we can use these tools. Small impromptu conversations, we use them all the time. Just real quick, pull kids aside. Hey, you did a great job today. I had kids swinging on the ropes today, and one of them was got a little brush burn. I'm really proud of you for working through it. I know that was uncomfortable, wasn't what you anticipated. You're a rock star, right? Doing like little tiny conversations. Then circles. This is what restorative practices tends to be, right? We have this whole continuum, but people tend to grab onto circles, which is fine. Circles are a really wonderful way to foster community. There is no corner. People can't hide. Everybody has an equal voice. Those leaders can give other people a chance to speak because everybody is going to be working through that. Any questions on the continuum? Because I want to dive in and I want us to look at the circles. And circles are a wonderful, wonderful way to build relationships. It's very easy for us to get out of the actual physical circle because of the way our classrooms are set up or whatever constraints you might have. Take them outside. Have them just stand up and not worry about what's around them. They don't always have to be seated in chairs sharing. So circle lesson plan is something that I wanted to just have you consider. And because of time, I'm not going to actually have us create one, but I would ask that you look at this later and create something that might work for your classroom. So you first, with any kind of lesson plan in the classroom, you want to establish background knowledge, right? So if we are creating norms, what do you think is an ideal learning situation for us as a classroom, right? Tammy's an art teacher. Are we going to be running around with knives? Probably not, right? So what are we going to do to have a very ideal learning? Are we going to keep people emotionally safe, right? So thinking about what that looks like. Describing your ideal scenario and environment. I want to feel safe. I want to walk in. I want you as a teacher to know my name, right? And you're going to gather that prompt, the information from that prompt with the group. Then what can participants do to keep the group on track? A lot of times in circles, we have accountability that come up, accountability measures with the classroom. If you have a tight group that you've established, it is amazing to see people, not that they're tattling, but they're like, I think we need to work on focusing a little better as a team, right? And they'll start to have these I wonder statements, or let's consider this, if you're modeling the language too. What will happen when the things break down? Sounds a little bit like expectation clarity of fair process, right? So what happens there? How will we hold one another accountable? Are we going to share it openly? Are we going to have, would you rather have you as the teacher get that feedback from the kids? You know, whatever your system would be. And then what are some ways that we can celebrate successes? You know, the classroom go through ebbs and flows, right? They're not always going to be amazing days, but when they are, celebrate, say, oh my gosh, this person, it's so great that this happened today. I'm really excited. And now we can all come in and we can get right to work because everybody remembered their calculator. That is an amazing, amazing feat, right? So that's just an example. There are so many resources out. There's a book called Circle Forward. It's a very expensive book. It's probably $100. It has lesson plans in there. I use it. There's a lot of different ideas. I have some ideas in my book, but definitely a Google search or just create things would be what I would recommend. So having things planned out is really important. I've been doing circles for over 15 years. And it's rare that I walk into any space without knowing what I'm going to do. I even thought about the weather thing that we did at the very beginning before I even got onto this webinar tonight. Okay. All right. So I'm checking the time. 7:55. Okay. I breezed through that. But I wanted to make sure that you got some background on specific tools. I know a lot of times we go to professional development and it's like, okay, we reviewed the background, but what do we do with it? So those were just 3 quick examples of how to use the tools of restorative practices. And I would love to share more. I'm probably going to have a session at the state conference this year. So, you know, definitely reach out. My website has a contact information, so you're welcome to shoot me a question if you have one. But please, if anyone has any now, let me know.
Jen, I just wanted to share a comment with you when you were describing that circle lesson plan and the idea of setting norms. But that's not only good for working with your classroom, but in your teaching team or your PLC or whatever, to kind of establish those norms there so that you can move the work of the team forward and you're not spending a lot of time off task. So really having those protocols to set norms can be used in a variety of circumstances.
That is so true. Thank you for bringing that up.
Well, and just as another aside, when you talk about the idea of the circle, one of the things that I found interesting years ago, taking a tour of Citizens Bank Park and being in the Phillies locker room, that locker room has no corners. It is somewhat oval in shape. And they did that on purpose to kind of avoid cliques establishing themselves in various corners. So again, that idea of having that sort of a formation that's open, that people can't go and hide off in a spot, has a lot of implications in the way in which you set up your classroom, the way in which you set up meetings. Just kind of an interesting construct.
Yeah, we used to have staff meetings in a circle. And the one question that was always asked, what was the funniest thing that happened in your middle school life recently? And we would share funny stories, and it was really fun.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Well, if there are no questions, I certainly would like to thank Jen for taking time to spend an hour with us this evening and explain a little bit about what restorative practices is all about. It is one of those things that, it's difficult to go through in a short amount of time and make a lot of explanations, but it certainly was helpful to be introduced to what was going on. We do intend to be running these webinars on the third Tuesday of each month. If you have a topic that you would like to either present on or you would like to hear more about, please email us at support@pamle.org as we prepare the lineup for the rest of the year. Also, you've heard some mention about our state conference. It will be in February this year at the Crown Plaza in King of Prussia. We are looking not only for folks to attend, but if you have something that you would like to be able to share, it is a great way to start if you want to kind of dip your toes into the presenting process, because you've got two options. You can do it in terms of a 60-minute concurrent session, or you can participate in what we call speed learning, where you're doing a brief session, it's about 15 minutes, and you repeat that 3 times. So if you're just kind of wanting to kind of get a sense of what it's like to present, that really is a great way to begin. I would encourage you to frequently go check the PAMLE website for more information. There you will find how to register, how to sign up to become a presenter, and lots of other things that may help you in terms of your professional life. We would also hope that many of you may be able to attend the AMLE annual conference this year in National Harbor. It's the 50th anniversary of AMLE, and so we'd like to see a big Pennsylvania contingent there. That being said, if there are no other questions or comments for the good of the cause, again, I will thank everybody for coming. If you are interested in the Act 48, you will be getting a link, I believe, that will be coming out that will give you the information. There's a brief survey that you have to complete in order to be eligible for Act 48. We ask that you do that no later than a week from this coming Friday. So that's going to be, I think, September 29th, and complete it at that time. And then they will process that Act 48 for you. All right.
And I'm happy to linger a little bit if we want to stop recording. But I want to thank everyone. It's so great to see people that I haven't seen in a little bit.
Okay, well, with that, I will stop the recording, but if somebody does want to hang on, we'll be happy to do that. Thank you and good night, everyone.